I think the reality is e-commerce is here to stay. It's not about putting the genie back in the bottle, and it's not about taking away experiences that customers enjoy. So we need to kind of own up to that, and we've created a monster, right? But it's here now. So how do you create the returns experience? So how do you take from where you're at and go somewhere else? Well, we could talk a lot about logistics and inventory management and the network design that can contend with returns in an efficient and effective way that's ecologically friendly. And yes, we are one of the few solutions that are about to take on that responsibility, because logistics is hard, right? And I think we can do it, quite frankly. However, the way to change and move the industry to better is through customer, and it's through customer experience. And so we know today there's errands and then there's enjoyment. So how do we build on the enjoyment? How do we build solutions that are heavily embraced, understood, and create better options for people so that they can evolve to new positions?
Welcome, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Gary Newbury. I'm a senior executive on call, helping businesses in the make, move, sell flow of consumer goods and services. My purpose is to inspire business leaders, particularly those within the consumer products and retailing space, to think big, be bold, scale, adapt and win, one epic supply chain transformation at a time. There's additional content available through my website, RetailAID.ca, or on my YouTube channel, RetailAID. Be sure to check it out. As the business world faces much volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, organizations need to be tapping into resources with an inside edge on transitioning their teams to be agile, innovative, and digital, with thought leaders, experts, and senior executives who have mastery of operational turnarounds and strategic transformations to help reorientate their enterprises. There's great material to get through here, so let's get started. Hello everybody, thanks for joining us. I've got Chris, Jarvis, and John McClymont with me to talk about the whole end-to-end flow backwards and forwards of e-commerce or online ordering and the products associated with that. So I'm Gary Newbury. My purpose in life is to help guide and inspire business leaders and boards to think big, be bold, scale, adapt and win, one epic supply chain at a time. And I'm a senior exec on call, specializing in rapid performance improvement across retail supply chains and the last mile. So perhaps, John, you can just give us a quick thumbnail sketch of where you are and what you're up to.
Sure, yeah, John McClymont. So I've been in logistics and supply chain for my whole career, so about 15 years now. Really strong focus on operations, operational excellence, execution, and passionate about the concept of servitization and really leveraging your operations to create more value to improve the customer experience that you're trying to provide.
Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris, CEO, Return Bear, young tech-led company, right in the middle of retail and logistics. We focus on creating a no regrets return economy. This is an economy that allows people to buy anything and return it anywhere. We think returns is a huge opportunity. So that's what we're building, and that's what we're doing.
We've got the right people in the right room. We're going to explore e-commerce, how it's grown rapidly, forced by the lockdowns back in March last year. And just as a sidebar to that me and John were having a conversation with Retail Insider about how do companies, retailers who haven't got an e-commerce presence, how do they quickly scale that up? Because if you're a non-essential retailer, your revenue could have gone quickly to zero, and you had empty stores and you had stock in stores or in the warehouse, and how quickly could you get that up to speed? 18 months on, we've had sometimes quite patchy experiences of online, sometimes by Amazon, who've been in online for 20, 25 years. Some businesses have just literally got the bug, and they've demonstrated that they've been able to deploy technology and process to deliver some kind of curbside or home delivery experience. And what we saw in the pandemic was a massive rise in uptake of online. Some people are already doing this and we're very familiar with this. Other people got into it because they wanted their stuff, and they wanted their stuff particularly picked up from their store or delivered to their porch. So we went from somewhere in the order of 3 to 5% annual movement going through e-commerce through online services to 10-15%. The stores opened again in Ontario and maybe in other markets towards the end of June, but the e-commerce carried on. Now, many pundits suggested as soon as the stores open, people will be rushing back in, buying loads of stuff, revenge spending, the roaring 20s, it was all going to happen. And we're all sitting on the edge of our chairs wondering, will it or not? Well, it doesn't seem to have gone that well. But one thing for sure, e-commerce has maintained a healthy pace. We can maybe discuss that during our conversation. Our rush to get to e-commerce, one of the things that we knew from our store-based network was returns happen. And they happen at a rate of maybe 8 to 10%, depending on which category you're in and a particular population you're trying to service. But that return spike happened possibly pretty much all the way through from maybe June last year, all the way through to Christmas, January this year, and is continuing. And now we're facing a peak with so many complications in it in terms of having stock in the first place and deploying that into stores or into a warehouse to facilitate increase in e-commerce growth. But also we have returns, and we've typically not been able to manage returns very well at all. And now that's reached its peak and its level of growth and volume demand for returns to be handled. And I think that we could probably surmise that much of that has ended up in landfill, and that can't be the way that retailers continue to operate. So I'll just position it there and chip in along the way and see where we get to.
I'll take 2 seconds, Chris, because I know this is your whole world right now. So I'll help kind of Gary tee it off for you. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing there with the uptake, I think the biggest change in the market and what we have to appreciate is the fact that the pandemic made people realize that e-commerce wasn't just about what I like to call experiential sales, right? Where you're looking for those very unique items and you're looking for those that diversity, or if you're looking for something very special, rare, hard to find. It made the transactional accessible for everybody. And not only just accessible, it made it acceptable and encouraged. So now all of a sudden you have everybody being like, yeah, it's $10, but I can order it. It's a $15 item, or I can put those, sort of staple products or that small basket of goods together, and it's still easier. And it's really not that much of an urgent need. So that works for me, right? That convenience, everyone's had a taste for that. Returns have always existed, right? Retail returns, especially in certain markets like apparel and things like that, have always traditionally had very, very high return rates. The challenge now, though, is that you have a system that has a very different model towards it when you're talking about getting the product to a customer, and initially didn't experience as much pressure for those exchanges. As more customers, though, indulge, as they want to try things, as they're exploring different brands and they're exploring new products, they're being encouraged to showroom a little bit, right? Free returns, free shipping, to try to get that customer, right? To get their attention and to have them buy. The challenge with that is that, when from the onset you have someone who buys 5 items knowing they're keeping 1 or 2, there's a stress now coming into the system that was never planned for and definitely not thought of, at least initially, at the same level as traditional brick and mortar retail. And I think, Chris, that's a lot of where you guys are stepping in and starting to really leverage the opportunities that exist there.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot in this conversation. I think it's a really mature thought, right? I mean, right now every retailer on the planet is focused squarely on the holiday season and how are we going to get this. And Gary, you make a whole other topic around the shortage of inventory, which we'll save for another discussion. But we are definitely heading into a fourth quarter that's going to be driven by e-commerce, and we know it. And those boxes are going to go to people's houses. The mature thought about it is, what happens in January? What happens on Boxing Day? And the reality is, we put up a sign that says, well, thanks for buying all your gifts from us, but we're not going to actually service you until February because we're trying to clear all this inventory and clean up the mess we did from the Christmas. And I think the stakes are never been higher, right? I mean, we've got a demographic, we've got a younger generation who love digital. They love, for them, that's the experience. They prefer not having a face-to-face conversations in a lot of their touch points. And that's not for everybody. So we're definitely in transition, right? But when it comes to returns and getting that money back in your wallet and getting convenience, it's actually easier to take that short trip down to the mall to do the return versus doing your arts and crafts project, putting things back in a box and going back to a place. Our customers, our surveys have told us, like, I don't know, it's a crazy number, but it's like 80+% of the population lives within 1 kilometer of Canada Post. And yet we survey 1,200 customers, and what they say is, you know what, I hate going to Canada Post for returns. I'm like, man, doesn't get any more convenient. Like, I can't build a network that big. But they hate it. You know why they hate it? They call that an errand, and they call shopping fun or entertainment. It's something I want to do versus something I have to do. And there's a clear differentiation. And I think experience and the art of retailing, obviously, is about those subtleties of what is an errand and what is joy, right? And so how do we bring returns into, the future process that's technologically driven, provides and affords options, that is convenient, but also puts it in a place of maximum fun and enjoyment, right? So we need to build this into people's lives. People's lives are changing. Retail is changing. Logistics is being digitized and changed for efficiencies. There's new tools in the toolkit. And what we've seen is there is a new category being created, and it's called the reverse logistics network. And it's not your forward supply chain. Your forward supply chain does a wonderful job of taking full truckloads, breaking them down, and eventually getting unit pick out of them and pushing mass amounts of product out to people. That same network doesn't do very well in reverse. We know inherently for reverse logistics, you have to aggregate from 35 million people in Canada, put it back in the box, and then start to decide where and why and how it should go somewhere. And that whole channel is dynamic. It's dynamic. Like, the aggregation is not, right? We got to give people convenience. We got to have drop-off locations. We got to have local mail-in options, not long distance, not across the country, not 5 days, but like local hubs that collect packages. Eventually, drop-off will be the dominant way of doing a return, and it will be buy anything, drop it off anywhere, and we'll create that ubiquity, that shared utility where things will get dropped off everywhere, and that's okay. But the mail-in portion can be local. And then from there, it goes back to the heart of logistics. We have an inventory problem on our hands. We've got the best inventory of the season stuck for 3 to 4 weeks in a reverse logistics process. We're literally forward fulfilling, paying for the shipment, and then we're putting it in the clearance bin the moment it gets back to the warehouse, if it gets processed at all. And so what we know to be true, and we've said it here a couple of times, right? You got the rise of e-commerce, you got the higher than expected return rates on e-commerce purchases. And then you've got this overwhelming cost of returns, cost in time and energy, upwards of 60% of the original value having to get placed back into returns. And as we go from one channel, the primary channel being the store and the secondary channel being e-commerce, and e-commerce going up, we're at a tipping point. And we believe in the next 3 to 5 years, when we go from 15% e-commerce penetration to 25% penetration, retailers are going to see material margin degradation in and around the 8% range. We know this to be true. We've done the math, and retail is a small margin game on a good day. And now we're going to make it that much worse. So when people say we can't make money through e-commerce, no, not if we keep forcing reverse logistics through your forward supply chain and using the same old software that doesn't allow us to do aggregation, sort things out, refurbish. Our WMSs are just not designed for that process. And so there's this whole world that we're in that is changing very quickly.
Well, so Chris, let me just quickly jump, because I am like 100% sure people will jump all over that, right? You know, I think just in the sense that I don't think a lot of people fully appreciate all of that behind the scenes business. Like, we talk about things like logistics and everything like that. And I think for a lot of people that work into it, you know, if you explain it to someone, like, you know, there's the face of what you see, but really everything, like all the magic happens behind the curtains, so to speak, right? That's really like the devil is in the details there.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of people may struggle with the idea of saying, well, what do you mean? I see a truck, you're bringing a truck from, you know, point A to point B, and you're bringing stuff there. What's the real issue with bringing it back, right? Like, you have the same resources, just bring it back. You have to appreciate, though, how much of transportation, of movement of goods, is really built on the, like, you know, the value, that value of you're bringing something there, right? So that retailer, as an example, who's shipping from point A to point B, or, you know, has all of those internal costs, there's revenue generation all of the way for that. The reverse logistics, though, most companies don't have to deal with it today. Most of them get that one-way shipment, and the whole market essentially has been built and benefited from, whether it's internal assets or different carriers. Okay, well, they take advantage of the capacity and they get to resell that capacity back into the market, right? I did X job from point A to point B. I'm now empty. I can go pick up from point B at C, and I can bring it to D now. So, you know, there is a lot of utilization of assets that way. So it does present a real world challenge, because it's like, now I need double utilization of the asset, but I'm not generating double the revenue. So it really has an interesting impact for when retailers have to try to figure out what's the best way to leverage their capability, whether they're, again, using their own assets or partners.
One of the things that Chris mentioned was this tipping point. And I have to say it's a visceral one for this basic reason. We learned lots of people came into e-commerce. Sometimes they were very familiar users, and some were very unfamiliar users. They struggled around. They either did it on their desktop, their tablet, or mobile, whatever they did it. They found a way of doing it, and they saw results. And certainly maybe not straight away, but it started to see results, and it reinforced this is actually really easy. And then you add into that the fear of shopping, the fear of public spaces, a fear that never existed before. Well, maybe it existed back in 1918, but with the Spanish flu, but certainly in this modern age, we never had a fear of going to public spaces like the malls and go and do shopping. Now, retailers require people to come into their stores, and the rough idea is that 25% of what they will buy will be impulse purchases. If they're not going to come back into the stores, they still may have the need for kind of some form of retail therapy. And that's actually going to be only fed through e-commerce. If they're not coming to the mall, they're going to have to sit on their mobile and generate that same kind of endorphin or whatever it might be. They say, we need to have this, but oh, I didn't realize I needed that. I'll order that while I'm here. So I think that Chris's point is actually more clear in my mind, that this recognition of the big problem of returns is going to be more in our face than we may expect it to be. And many commentators were saying that, oh, you know, e-commerce would drop down, we'd go back to normal, everybody rushed back to the stores. It's not happening. No. The figures are telling it's not happening. No. And in fact, as the various subsidies have fallen by the wayside, people may be getting back into jobs, or the subsidies just get cut suddenly. We will find that this will have a detrimental impact on the volume of retail, and that volume of e-commerce will just start edging up in a big way. And as a consequence of that, the returns will start to elevate, because people say, oh, I like that, but I can't afford it. All right, it went through my credit card, but actually my bill's now due to be paid. I have to return some stuff. It's a big problem. And I think that we, as a country, as an industry, we really have overlooked returns for such a long time.
Well, and with e-commerce growing, I mean, you know, Chris, you brought it up about technology. The retailers and e-commerce in general is almost, you know, fed a little bit of this challenge that's coming up, in the sense that so many businesses, whether direct to customer or whether big brands that have expanded and continue to grow and improve their omni-channel experience. One thing to tag on, Gary, yeah, people were afraid to go to the store. The other big benefit, though, was when you shop online, if it's there, if it allows you to put it to the cart, if you can hit print, like you get it. How often are people going to the store these days? That size isn't there, that color isn't there, that particular version of what they wanted isn't there. So not only do you have fear, not only do you have people realizing that, hey, this is actually a lot easier and more convenient than I thought for a wide range of products, but then they also kind of get what they want. So like, when you're talking about convenience, time, everything comes back. And that's why, Chris, I agree with you 100%. The path to better returns really then is like, how can you replicate or create something in concert that offers the same type of user experience, right? Where people know what the process is, it's very clear, it's very straightforward. And then you benefit from that to create a very positive experience from something that, you're right, typically is the chore part. They don't like, people don't like that. They don't like having to return versus the buy. So definitely think that was a strong point.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is e-commerce is here to stay. It's not about putting the genie back in the bottle, and it's not about taking away experiences that customers enjoy. So we need to kind of own up to that, and maybe we've created a monster, right? But it's here now. So how do you create the returns experience? So how do you take from where you're at and go somewhere else? Well, we can talk a lot about logistics and inventory management and the network design that can contend with returns in an efficient and effective way that's ecologically friendly. And yes, we are one of the few solutions that are about to take on that responsibility, because logistics is hard, right? And I think we can do it, quite frankly. However, the way to change and move the industry to better is through customer, and it's through customer experience. And so we know today there's errands and then there's enjoyment. So how do we build on the enjoyment? How do we build solutions that are heavily embraced, understood, and create better options for people so that they can evolve to new positions? And let's really start to understand the experience of a customer today. And so a return can happen for many different reasons, right? I ordered the bowl, I got the bowl was broke. John bought me a gift, because he always sends me gifts. You know that, Gary. I don't know where your gifts are, but
he never sends me one.
I get these gifts and they're the wrong size, or I already have it. We'll try our best through technology to minimize returns, which is just the best case scenario. But inevitably, people have what we affectionately call regrets. I have a regret. I wanted the bowl, but the bowl showed up broken. So now what should I do? So today, you'd go to the store, you'd get in your car. After all the lovely convenience of e-commerce, you'd get in your car and go, oh, I got to go through traffic, and I've got to pay for parking, and I got to go here, and I'm going to get the bowl. But I really want the bowl, right? And then you get in a lineup behind all the other people that have e-com purchases, and you go, can I ever get out of here? And then they ask for your credit card, and you can't find your credit card. And then they look at your bowl and they go, well, you dropped it. You broke it. Well, I don't know who broke it, but it's broken. And 9 times out of 10, the retailer subsides and gives you a refund. But nobody wants anything to do with that last hour and a half, right? From the time you left to the time that happened, you want nothing to do with it. So imagine if returns could be different, and you went to a portal, you went to your phone, and you said, I have a regret. That bowl showed up broken. Well, great. Now I have a problem. I know what the problem is. I know who has a problem, where you're at, and what you want. Let me solve your problem. Sounds really simple. It's not so simple. It takes a lot of ingenuity, process, logistics, technology. But essentially, we need to tackle this problem very, very differently. So what we do is, if you do want to come to the store, first of all, we know you're coming. Location services are on. We know you've arrived. You don't need to pull out your credit card. You don't need to do a transaction. We've already done that. The moment you bought it online, we know all that stuff. Why do we need to assert that on you again? We give you the new bowl and we say, sorry for the problem. Or we send a delivery service and we say that bowl is going to be there in a couple hours. Just put your other bowl outside and we'll do that swap, and we'll see you next time. Maybe we'll give you a coupon to incent your traffic or your decisions to do something different next time. Maybe we'll invite you to a certain location in our network that has a store that you want to see something else that goes with the bowl. I mean, the options and the creativity I'll leave to the retailers, but the ability to acknowledge and get lead time on a regret allows us to start to create resolution to that regret, and starts to surprise and delight customers with an unexpected engagement that's not about a hassle of returning, It's about brand integrity. It's about a brand promise. And it really is about creating new no regrets economies is what we call it. It's an economy that, you're going to spend your money that you want to spend on things that you want. And if you have a regret, we're going to correct that regret. But we would like to think the best of the best retailers, the best brands are going to take that to a place that means stickiness. That means we're going to close those transactions more than not. We're going to understand our customer deeper. We're going to endeavor to really close, not just push product on someone and say, well, I know you bought it and you really don't like it, but you're going to keep it because it's too much hassle taking it back. We're going to allow that to come back because it's going to be frictionless and it's going to be fast and it's going to be easy. But then we're going to take that customer on a journey because we didn't get it right or they didn't get it right, but we're going to endeavor as a brand to get it right. Maybe not today, but we're in it for the long haul of our customers' relationship, right? And I think that's the economy that's going to be built. I mean, we intrinsically talk about, logistics. We talk about community. We talk about neighborhood solutions. We think because returns is so decentralized, it happens at a community level. It happens at a neighborhood level. And so we think endeavoring relationships and friendships and being a good neighbor means that there's a level of trust and that there's a level of long-term viability for both of us. This is where sustainability happens. Sustainability doesn't happen at an aggregate national level. It happens at my local level. My trees, my people, in my way, on my terms, that connects me to brands and connects me to doing the right thing. We need to facilitate that. And so we're really passionate about, obviously, returns, and we're passionate about digitizing supply chain, and we're passionate about bridging e-com and offline experiences. But when it's all said and done, it's about doing the right thing for the customer and giving them options that never existed. And for us, this is about creating a new category that has to look and operate different than anything we've had in the past. And it seems like we're really close and we got the answer. And what we're seeing in the market today is it feels like we're really close because we got trucks and we got warehouses and we got multi-million-dollar systems, but it's just not working. And it's not going to work if we go too much farther. And I can tell you, in a company that's about 8 months old, my phone rings on a daily basis from some of the biggest brands in the globe saying, we don't have it right either. And no one wants to talk about it because we rather talk about sell-through. And I get it. It's all about revenue. But what's catching up to people is the reverse. It's this elephant in the room that's just not being disclosed. And we need to start to talk about it for the environmental sake, for the customer's sake. There's ways to get at this. And that's what we're excited about, showing what we've digested in the last 8 months and what we've built and why we think, I mean, there's a lot we need to do, right? There's a lot of change that needs to get instigated. So how I started my answer was really, if you want to make change, it starts with creating better experiences, not that's good enough, or let's just tone down the e-com channel and everything's going to be fine. It really is. I always talk about it as cake and eat it too. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I want my convenience. I want my online shopping. I want it on my terms. And yes, I want to return it if I'm not 100% completely satisfied. And that's okay too. We understand that.
Well, you made two just absolutely like gem points that, like, if anything, people have to really pull out of that. And one is that huge customer experience piece, right? You can think of, I'm sure everyone can think of some of the largest brands that are, let's even say, exceptionally return friendly. Mm-hmm. How often are you maybe leaving a store, leaving their sort of, wherever they happen to be selling, and you see a long line of returns? The deeper that line, the worse that experience is getting for everyone in line. Back in the day when I had more hair and everything, and I was working in sales and going through school, there was this very big concept of like trying to save a sale or trying to, really understand that regret that you kind of talk about that the customer had and how do you make it right. I can tell you from like that person who was in that queue 13 people deep, you've got about no chance. That person, by the time they get to the front of the counter, they're irritated, they're frustrated, they don't want to hear anything about it. And they're actually angry at that point beyond anything else, which just in no way is a positive experience. So, that ability that you have there and what you're saying about that focus on customer experience and leveraging all of the amazing tools that we have today, huge, huge win, huge opportunity. The other big takeaway for me out of what you said is that, you have to think different. And I guess I'll put a small twist, and I would say, I think a lot of retailers have to think uncomfortably. I think, you know, a lot of the interesting solutions come from those ideas that might have been a hard no previously, that might be against traditional approaches. But that's where that collision and that creativity of new ideas really has a lot of opportunity long term, right? You know, that short term, that immediate moment, maybe it's not always like a guaranteed win, but you know, it's kind of like the Monty Hall problem. And at the end of the day, statistically, you're probably better off still making that choice in the long term than trying to just have that one individual win every time.
Yeah, John, thanks for that. I mean, really, you know, I'm glad we're, you know, bringing some value, but like, it's, how do we, so what we've recognized, and, you know, the design that we're building is really to afford retailers optionality. So one of the things that we hear is, no, I don't want any returns going to your kiosk. I want all that traffic, that magic traffic, to come back to my store, to have that really bad experience again that you do nothing with. I shouldn't be so negative. I'm sure there are brilliant retailers that do a whole lot with it, right? But you get my exaggeration of the point. They want their traffic. So, you know, we're endeavoring to bring our technology as a software as a service and deploy it into the store. Sure, you could scan QR codes and do frictionless returns just like we do. Absolutely an option. You know what? Here's a little secret we learned. Sometimes customers don't really want to go back to the store. That pushy salesman who made me buy that expensive item that I couldn't afford, but I was at a moment of weakness and I did it anyway. I hope I don't see Peggy. Like, where's Peggy? I need to get in the store, get my money back, and I don't want Peggy to see me again because I already made a bad decision once. Boy, I would really love to have the neutral third party of a drop location that I could go to. Well, we offer that, and that's not the only case of not wanting to get that traffic. I mean, when we think about the fourth quarter, we're talking about pre-Christmas returns, right, as the busy season. And well, what happens when you put up that sign? Maybe you need a support staff down the other end of the mall that says, hey, we got a kiosk over here, bring it over to us, we'll help you with that. And so you can have your cake and eat it too. You know, maybe in the summer we can direct traffic to the store. Maybe in the winter we don't direct traffic to the store, or whatever drives your seasonality. But technology can federate that. We can suggest and book and challenge customers to do it. We can incent them. So I think there's this technology-led customer experience we need to do, and then there's all of this physical logistics that needs to get constructed to sustain it. And not a lot of people are ready to do both, but you know, we've got plans and playbooks and strategies and visions that see both of these tranches need to go in parallel. And having been in the retail industry for a good part of my career and a logistics part for the other good part, the magic happens when we bring people, process, and technology into alignment. Here's what I believe. It's not about today just putting out a better solution and having everybody full stop change over. It doesn't happen like that. No matter how good the solution is, you have to bring people through a glide path and a time of transition. And we're in a time of transition that we are going to federate footsteps through the store. We are going to bring them to the kit. We're going to do both. And then eventually I can tell you over time, people are going to prefer one over the other, and it's going to become the norm. And you're going to want to put the Return Bear app on your phone, and you're going to allow us to look at all your transactions, because we're going to normalize that return policy. You're not going to have to search the FAQ or send it back and cross your fingers and hope it shows up on your credit card someday. You're actually going to know the cards that you've dealt, and you're going to know that it's okay. If you deal with Return Bear, at least, you know, it's 30 days. You know what this means. You know what the condition is. You push all the right buttons and everything happens, and stuff goes into your wallet very quickly, and retailers get their inventory in a sellable position to capitalize on it. So I can envision that future.
Yeah, just Chris, you suggest there's lots of calls from a whole range of retailers saying, we recognize we've got a problem now, and trying to get ahead of this pre-Christmas and post-Christmas return spike, which is going to happen. So firstly, who are you being approached with? Not companies, but the kind of roles in companies. Who's actually taking this one up? Is it a senior leader, or is it somebody down in the gubbins of an organization knowing that somebody above them is saying there's a problem, go and find some solution to it? And what do retailers perhaps need to be thinking about as they start to look at returns and having to face some kind of transition in how they've handled them to allow companies like Return Bear to kind of provide solutions?
That's a fantastic question, Gary, because you're absolutely leading me to an answer, and there is no chief reverse logistics officer. So the simple fact is we get the SVP, the chief logistics officer, the head of supply chain, we get store operations, we get the head of e-commerce, the head of transportation. Trying to think of all the examples, but I'll be honest, there is no consistency. There's very little consistency. And you know what's interesting about that? Who comes to the table kind of defines what it is they want to talk about and what part of returns that they want to deal with. I want my stores to be better places. So I'll tell one very large retailer who does, young adults fashions, came to us and he ran stores. 10 million returns a year in Canada alone. If I never have a return in my store again, it couldn't be any, better for me. And my customer is a millennial. They love to shop online and all they do is do returns in my stores and I can't get anything done. And all we do is clean up returns. Like at the end of the day, there's just this mountain that I have to put back into stock or put on a clearance rack. And he was store ops, right? Then you get, the guy from logistics who runs the warehouse, who has this couple rows in the back of his warehouse that got an inch of dust on them and haven't been looked at for a couple years. Those are the returns that no one ever got to because they're busy doing forward logistics stuff. And his agenda is completely different yet again, right? It's like, how do I divert this mess to usually a software, because I don't have the tools at my disposal to deal with 200 boxes coming at me and do my real job. So he's just wanting to find some efficiencies. And if you could give me the tools, that'd be great, or maybe take them to another place. You get the head of e-commerce who wants shipping and shipping rates and wants to find a way to give returns for free versus the, either the cost to the customer, or the cost to them, but the agendas vary. And, I think what is true is when you walk into the retail boardroom, at the C-level and you go, okay, so which one of you bunch owns returns anyway? I don't think anybody stands up, or not many people have someone who stands up. Some do, some do in fairness. And usually returns, if there is a return group or a director of returns, they're down somewhere in the supply chain group and their job is to, get that inventory somewhere or pack it up for next season. But yeah, we really don't think retailers are thinking about returns holistically. And they're certainly not thinking about the experiences or the negative experiences that are being created today. And we know for a fact there's a lot of dreadful experiences happening in the market, but people endeavor to work to the best of their ability because they love the products that they love, right? And so they put up with certain things, and it's just a matter of time before someone else says, I'll give you the great product and the great service. And that's when things start to change. And in this case, it's not a retailer thing, it's a channel thing. The channel is ill-equipped to deal with returns, and we haven't had to deal with it because they represent 10 or less % of my assortment. And yeah, I'm losing money, but it's 90% of it over here is making 20 points. So I'm still okay. But as this tsunami, this volume starts shifting channels, well, we see the erosion's real. And so now people are waking up going, oh, wow, the pandemic has driven up the volumes. To your opening point, Gary, they're not coming back down.
Yeah.
And so now I'm living with a very different margin on my business. And now I've got a problem. And that's where it starts. So yeah, we got a lot of people talking to us, and it's exciting because direct to consumer brands come for one reason. Bricks and mortar enterprise-like chains come for another reason. Mid-tier, medium-sized retailers come for a slightly different reason. It's really starting to get a clear picture of what type of retailer are you and what scale are you dictates the questions and the comments and what they want out of a return bearer. I'll say it again, the category is being built, and the problem is pretty self-evident. It's now about adoption. How do we get into these retailers and get them to adopt, buy into the future, and participate somewhat in a shared economy to drive a bigger result and get this elephant out of the room for them?
Like a lot of interesting things. I agree. Obviously, e-commerce and the trend that's there, that will continue to grow. Everyone's seen it. The convenience, and we're always driving to make it more convenient, right? Returns have always been part of retail shopping in general. That's not going to go away. there's different ways that you can influence it, so that, maybe you try to mitigate from the start. There may be even different ways to manage through the process. But at the end of the day, just like the sales are there, the returns will be there, because the returns were always part of brick and mortar as well. So, it is important to think about the whole circle of what's going on for your business, not just for your business, but I mean, there's a lot of focus on the planet and sustainability and all of the impacts that a lot of this change is bringing. So it's a very real issue that, needs to stay on the table.
I agree. I think the reluctance of shoppers to shop in shop or in store, the increasing ability of wide ranges of generations and people to get on their mobile, get on their desktop and ordering things, and then there being no obvious in-place solution to handle returns other than, as Chris has said, bring it back to the store somehow, handle it somehow, either put it back on the shelf or in the clearance rack. That can't just be the only thing we can look forward to. And I think that Chris has painted a picture of a different world that we can look forward to, and we need to look forward to it a lot quicker than we may have thought about a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever, because this spike of e-commerce demand and the spike of returns that is associated with that is going to be at such a level that we can no longer ignore it. Because e-commerce is a massive drain on resource, then we have the returns on top of that, which if we thought the e-commerce was randomized, the returns come in no clear pattern, and we're handling lots of different products in lots of different conditions, arriving at lots of different times. You can't imagine a more complex logistical problem of being able to handle that effectively and efficiently. And then, of course, there's a customer at the end of this. We're not looking at just logistics here. We are actually looking at the direct impact on your brand, on that consumer, on what they're going to be doing next, what they think about you, and whether or not they're going to express loyalty in the future towards your brand. So I'd like to thank Chris, Jarvis, John McClymont, myself, Gary Newbury, for a very interesting, insightful, and somewhat challenging conversation that retailers should be having with themselves. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening today. I hope the information has been valuable for you and your team. You can connect with me via the website retail.ca and go to the contact page, or via LinkedIn by typing linkedin.com/in/last-mile. Look forward to hearing from you and playing an active part with your supply chain and your business's transformation as you start to act boldly, think big, scale, adapt, and win.